This looks good.
Which is why this year at TCI,
This looks good. No.
we're spending over $600 million on cable programming.
No.
Just to make sure there's always something on. Everyone wants to watch.
Oh, hi. Want to see a story about the plastonauts?
At least that's the goal.
Okay. Here's one about a robot. You know, a machine that
This looks
for
good.
different kinds of jobs.
This is CNN.
I'm Rowland Evans. Robert Novak and I will look at President Bush's new economic recovery program by questioning one of his cabinet members.
He is Housing Secretary Jack Kemp. The president, in his State of the Union address, attacked the recession with the same pledge he made against Saddam Hussein a year ago.
I know we're in hard times, but I know something else. This will not stand.
He proposed tax incentives and targeted government aid, setting a deadline of March 20th for Congress to get the job done. That brought negative election reviews from lots of Democrats.
It takes unmitigated gall to come around and give us really a deadline when he's the one that's avoided any action for the last 90 days.
And at least one Republican joined the critics.
For 60 minutes of rhetoric can't compensate for 3 years of neglect. He has governed as a liberal Republican, and now he's going to run again as a conservative Republican.
Mr. Secretary, what does this deadline mean? If Congress does not act by March 20th, what's the president going to do exactly?
I think they will. I think the president has clearly laid out for the American people where the responsibility will lie for failure to take action in this period of very slow economic growth. So I think that was one of the most important parts of the speech. The American people want the president to give the Congress a deadline because they're worried Congress will not respond.
Let me try to pin this down. So you're not saying that Congress is going to pass the president's program that he presented to the Congress on Tuesday night?
You know, actually, much of what the president offered in his strategy and agenda to get America moving again and to create jobs and to restore value to the asset base of America has been co-sponsored in the Congress by Democrats. The liberalization of IRAs was Benson's idea and Bill Roth's idea. The enterprise zones by Charlie Rangel of Harlem. Passive loss liberalization. There's over 300 co-sponsors. I think they'll move. The president will not get back exactly what he sent up, but he did the right thing in laying out his agenda and drawing the line in the sand domestically as he did in the Persian Gulf.
All right, well, let's use that same analogy. When Saddam Hussein did not get out of Kuwait, we sent the bombers over Baghdad. Now, there is a good chance that the Congress will not send him legislation that's acceptable. What does he do then?
He vetoes it and tells them that, look, he is willing to compromise on his agenda. He's willing to work with the Democrats in the Congress, who control the Congress for the past, 42 years, by and large, but that he will veto a bill that redistributes income. He'll veto a bill that raises tax rates and destroys the economy or hurts the economy, and he'll certainly veto what the Democrats came up with yesterday in the Congress when they suggested they want a 35 top bracket and they want a 15%. Now we know what the Democrats are for. Yeah. Soaking the rich, and the president wants to get the economy growing again and create jobs. I think the president is much closer to the heart of the problem than are the Democrats in the Congress.
Mr. Secretary, the Vice President told us at breakfast later this past week that he could not predict whether the President of the United States would veto a bill that contained a slight increase in the top bracket, now 31 or 33%, going to 34 or 35. Will he veto it? How do you know that?
I don't know specifically what would be vetoed and what would not, Rolly. All I was saying was that which is coming out of the Congress today in the Democratic Party, i.e. a 35% tax bracket and a 15% surtax, I think is absolutely sure to be vetoed. And I want to say something parenthetically to my answer. If the president, and I can't speak for him, and I don't, I'll make that very clear. if the president got a bill that cut the capital gains rate to 15, liberalized passive loss, would get America moving again, create more jobs, and restore value to both commercial and residential real estate, in my view only, I would be willing to take a 33% tax rate on Lee Iacocca.
But not
in
34.
Exchange,
But not 34.
Well, look, there already is, under the budget agreement of 1989-90, there already is a 34% bracket for people in upper incomes, and I think clearly that would be a good trade-off.
Mr. Secretary.
Let me just make the point, though. It's an important economic point. You guys always talk politics, but you never discuss the reason behind an issue.
We'll give you 10 seconds to make the point.
That's about as much as you dedicate to the income earned from wages, while important, obviously, to the working family and working men and women and all of us, is important to the economy. It's not as important as income from that capital and savings put at risk that starts the businesses, that creates the jobs, that gets this country
Two quick questions.
moving. And that's why the president, I think, made a right choice.
You know in your heart of hearts, I think you're smart enough to know this, that the Democrats are not even remotely considering the possibility of giving you a 15.4% capital gains tax cut rate if they don't increase the top bracket to 35. You know that, don't you, sir?
The trade-off, as I said, Bob understands this, I think, would be legitimate if they simply recognized a 33% bracket on incomes above, say, $1 million, would be a good trade-off for getting a 15% indexed capital gains.
All right, sir. Now, you have the veto. You've told us that on March 20th, if the Rowland plan gets to the White House, he will veto it. What does that do to his deadline of March 20th? I don't understand. What happens next?
Rolly, I'm somewhat of in a bind because I'm not the negotiator for the president or the White House, and it's pretty tough to ask me that question. I think most people would understand that the housing secretary does not do the negotiations over the tax bill. But if the president were to, say, veto that part of the program that he doesn't like and that would simply redistribute wealth or was purely Keynesian or purely consumption-based, I think the American people would suggest that that was the right thing to do, and then he's got to tell the Congress, this is what I'll sign. And if you don't send me something I can sign and is retroactive to January 1st, 1992 to get America moving again and create more jobs, then the responsibility for the recession being continued will be clearly on the shoulders of the Democratic Congress. And I think the American people would understand that.
Mr. Secretary, the reviews are in on the President's State of the Union address, not from Fritz Hollings or Pat Buchanan or Jack Kemp or Evans Novak. They're in from the people, and the people say it was a flop. All the polling material is very negative. Why did they go wrong? Tell me why.
I don't know, Bob. I can't answer the poll that you're talking about.
There's a lot of polls.
I just came from New Hampshire. I was up there for 2 days. In fact, your partner was up there following me around, and it got a good response in New Hampshire. It got a good response among home builders and realtors, among first-time home buyers, among people who want and do recognize that this nation needs to grow and create more jobs, notwithstanding the fact that he took a terrible beating in the post-speech 2-day period from the Democrats and from the press. I think the American people understand that the president's taking action. I know that they like the drawing the line in the sand on March 20th.
But from the standpoint of self-criticism, Mr. Secretary, the things that move the American people by President Reagan and indeed by Jack Kemp in your book, in your speeches, is a big, broad picture. Isn't there too much of a question of, well, we're going to withhold less money, we're going to give you a little edge on your first time home buying, the kind of stuff that government loves to do, but with no vision and no big picture? Isn't that what's wrong with this message?
Well, it's no secret that I've never liked tax credits. Basically, those are gimmicks. I do like the idea of incentives for first-time home buyers. I think that was good, and that is resonating well. A liberalization of IRAs is resonating well. Clearly, the withholding idea is a gimmick.
It's a phony.
And frankly, I cannot sit here on your show and retain my credibility and say that allowing people another $30 a month is going to spur economic recovery. It isn't. There's only one thing that will get this economy going again, and it's what the chief banker of the United States of America and chairman of the Fed, Alan Greenspan, said, and that is an immediate cut in the capital gains rate to 15 or eliminating it altogether.
You are given a lot of credit, Mr. Secretary, for the fact that the president did come out with a growth package as good as it was, and you were described as fighting every inch of the way against the budget director, Richard Darman. Do you think it is time that Mr. Darman has outlived his usefulness in this government?
No. And I haven't outlived my usefulness, and my usefulness is working behind the scenes with the president and his top economic advisors to make sure that our strategy is to encourage the economy to grow, to expand, and particularly in the inner cities, and to help housing. And I did that. The president deserves the credit. And the fact that
you ducked my question.
No, I didn't. I'll be very specific. The fact that there's a debate among the president's advisors should not come as any secret to either Evans or Novak or to the American people. And that's fair. Everybody recognizes you can't have a cabinet with unanimity.
Mr. Secretary, the one big thing you wanted in this speech wasn't there, and that was a cut in the payroll tax. Why couldn't you sell that to the president?
The big thing I wanted was a 15% cut.
The second biggest thing you wanted was a payroll tax.
And the other thing I wanted was to eliminate the capital gain tax in the inner city to foster entrepreneurship. That's in there.
Last question on this
subject. We have to lower the cost of labor at some point.
Then we're going to move from economics to politics, which I know you won't talk about. You really think, in retrospect, the president served his country by waiting 2 full months before he set this program up, when this could have been done, the withholding, you call it a gimmick. You say this is only a gimmick, but he could have readjusted the withholding last October.
Well, we could have indexed the capital gain tax.
But why didn't he?
According to the Wall Street Journal and Paul Craig Roberts, it could be done by government fiat.
Why did he wait?
And the vice president takes that.
Why did he wait? Please answer that for me.
The president didn't wait. He came into his presidency with the pledge to the American people in 1988 that he would cut the capital gains rate to 15. George Mitchell and the Democrats in Congress have laid down in the railroad tracks to prevent it from happening. So clearly, the Congress has to share some of the blame for the slowdown in the American economy and the loss of value to their capital assets.
Mr. Secretary, you mentioned your trip up to New Hampshire. On our program a few weeks ago, Pat Buchanan mentioned your trip and in these words. Let's take a look at it right now.
I don't know how an independent conservative like Jack Kemp, who cannot agree with what's going on in this administration, can come up to New Hampshire and say George Bush is the conservative after he has raised taxes and gone south on quota and has spent what he has. I mean, I think if Jack tries that, he will injure himself.
Haven't you really injured your credibility by going up there and saying that George Bush is a conservative?
Look, with all due respect to my friend Pat and to the question, I'm in the president's cabinet. I'm his housing secretary. The budget reflects the priorities of helping low and moderate income people get homes and get economic development and jobs. And the president's going for a 15% tax rate on capital gains. It isn't everything that anybody wants. But ask Pat Buchanan, who appointed and fought for Clarence Thomas to go on the Supreme Court, and who resisted Pat Buchanan's advice, and against Pat Buchanan's advice, and of course Bob Novak as well, went in and stopped Saddam Mussolini from taking over Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Israel.
The question was, do you think you've hurt your credibility?
No.
Okay. Second question. You told us on this program, same program, that you thought your old friend Pat Buchanan, who had not run for president in 1988 to give you a clear field,
well, I'm not
you said, sir, you said that you thought he was on a, quote, suicide mission up in New Hampshire.
I never used suicide.
I'm sorry, I thought you had.
No, I didn't use suicide. I said, and you heard me at the press conference in Manchester with Judd Gregg and the mayor of Manchester.
That's right.
That I think I welcomed him in the race.
Do you think it's a good thing for Bush?
That I thought it was good for the Republican Party.
Do you think it's good for Bush?
Yeah, I think it's good for George Bush, and it's good for the country and the party and the primary process to have a president, a sitting president, challenged in his own party.
And how well do you think he's going to do? You've just been up there.
I think he will do pretty well. There's a lot of frustration. They're not mad. There's no hatred of George Bush. There's a lot of respect for the job he's done. There's frustration, and I think the frustration would be better aimed at the Democrats in the Congress. And I told Pat, look, Pat, stop bashing Japan, stop bashing Israel.
How well do you think he's going to do?
Let me finish this point.
Yes, sir.
Because it's an important one.
Yes, sir.
Stop bashing Israel, Mexico, free trade, Japan. Start bashing the liberals in the Congress who are preventing the conservative values and conservative programs and progressive reforms that we want to see passed.
You're not going to answer my question. Let me try one more. Do you think that one of the reasons the president went as far as he did on capital gains, etc., was because Pat Buchanan is running in New Hampshire?
No. Vin Weber,
Good answers.
Newt
Bob, take it
Gingrich,
away.
Trent Lott,
Take
Connie
the
Mack.
next question, quick.
They're the ones. Vice
And
President
Jack Kemp.
Quayle.
And Jack Kemp.
Jack
Take all the
Kemp.
credit.
Be honest, Jack. Be honest, sir.
The president did it, though, and he deserves the credit.
All right. I want to get back for one thing to Mr. Darman. Mr. Clayton Yiter, the Republican National Chairman, has become the domestic policy czar. Isn't this an attempt to, as the phrase goes, compartmentalize Mr. Darman, get him outside of the policy area?
I must admit, watching this from afar, there's too much talk about rearranging policy and communications. Look, there's only one communication that matters to the American people. Cutting tax rates on capital, labor, the family, and getting America moving again and creating jobs. So I'm less interested in the deck chairs than I am in making the table bigger and providing more chairs and helping this
Mr.
president
Secretary,
get elected.
we have to take a break for some messages. But when we get back, it will be with the big question for Secretary Kemp.
Is there a rational alternative to the traditional trading floor? Yes. Not having one. NASDAQ, the stock market for the next 100 years.
Because some aches and pains don't go away when the lights go out, we've created Tylenol PM. Specially formulated with extra strength Tylenol pain reliever for those aches and pains that can keep you up at night. Plus a gentle ingredient to help you sleep. So you can wake up refreshed in the morning. From the name you trust comes Tylenol PM, so you can rest easy.
Butter?
Billy.
Thank you.
Looks good, doesn't it? Ounce for ounce, Philly cream cheese has half the calories of butter or margarine. Next time, batter your bread with Philly instead.
The voices of American voters.
Washington, D.C. is going to have to listen.
I think people are disappointed
We keep having to compromise. Jobs everywhere.
that the new middle class cannot survive.
Frustration is running high this election year.
I really don't know what we're going to do.
In a 2-hour special, you'll hear how Americans really feel about crime, unemployment, education, 10 major issues that will define this election. The People's Agenda, a Democracy in America special, Sunday, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Secretary Kemp, the big question. Vice President Quayle, your friend Dan Quayle, told the press yesterday, on Friday, he said Mario Cuomo will be the Democratic presidential nominee. What's your call?
I don't know the context in which Dan said that.
That's all. He was asked.
I don't know.
Just the way I'm asking
I wouldn't
you.
be surprised if another Democratic candidate gets into the race.
Who?
Gebhardt, Benson, maybe Tom Foley.
You didn't mention Mario.
Mario Cuomo, he might.
Who's the
I don't
toughest?
know.
Who's the
toughest?
strongest?
Well, it's mixed. I think Mario Cuomo would be tough, notwithstanding my friend Dan Quayle's comments to the contrary, and no matter how bad a job some people think he's done in New York, Governor Cuomo, in my view, would be a very, very representative, dialectical, card-carrying, liberal Democrat, and that would be, in my view, a good race. I think President Bush would defeat him handily, but because of his record. That he is a very capable, very able debater and dialectician.
Do you think Governor Bill Clinton of Arkansas has been hurt by the allegations about his personal life?
Well, that's going to be decided in the New Hampshire primary.
What's your opinion?
I don't know. It's mixed.
Does this
Rowland
kind
was
of
up there.
inquisition get under your skin a little bit? Do you think...
Well, I think, listen, clearly, Clinton is the front runner in New Hampshire, and you were there with me, and you could tell that he is holding up well in New Hampshire. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Do you think it is proper for presidential candidates to be asked about
whether you think, it
their...
is not the question of whether someone thinks it's proper. It is the question that has already been done, and it's going to continue to be done, and that is just part of the political process. And notwithstanding whether somebody thinks it's fair or right, it's been done. And that's the way process
And this is
working.
built into the process from here on out, you think?
Yes.
Every candidate will have to run this gauntlet.
Right.
Mr. Secretary, will we ever see another Kemp for President campaign?
Well, I'm certainly not going to say that on the Evans and Novak show in 1992.
Why not?
1996, I'm talking about.
Well, in 1990, this is 1992.
Yes, yes.
You probably
Yeah, but we're
this
looking
is
at
the Evans and
96.
Novak
Tell me
show.
what you are going to say.
Well, what I'm going to say is that I'm going to be supporting the Bush-Quayle ticket, working loyally and hard for the ticket.
They can't run in 96.
And I'm going to make a decision about 96, not in 1992.
Okay. Thank you very much, Secretary Jack Kemp.
Thank you, Bob.
My partner and I will return with some comments after these messages.
Where would the action be without cable? In just 1 month, a subscription to cable gives you over 1,200 hours of sports programming you wouldn't be able to see anywhere else. Cable contributes to life.
Listen to the trees. They're trying to tell us something about what our polluted air is doing to them and to us. Fortunately, there's an answer. Natural gas, the cleanest burning fossil fuel we have. It can help save the air and everything that lives in it. Listen to the trees, because air pollution is a problem hanging over all of us. Use natural gas and we'll all breathe easier.
All dairies try hard to meet high industry standards. But Quality Check tries harder because our standards are higher. Look for the check in the queue, where the fresh taste will tell you we're better because we're better than we have to be, which is why we stand alone in our field.
In Switzerland, Ricola has been soothing sore throats and relieving coughs naturally for over 60 years. Ricola is a blend of 10 organically grown alpine herbs and natural flavors, providing pleasant-tasting natural relief. Ricola, the natural choice for soothing sore throats and relieving coughs naturally.
Bob, did you hear what I heard? Secretary Kemp used the word gimmick about very many aspects of President Bush's speech. He said the rechanging of withholding taxes was a gimmick. He said that tax credits, in his opinion, are a gimmick. What saved the program for him was the reduction in the capital gains tax. But that really took a little bit of courage to say that about his own president.
Particularly about the tax withholding. I didn't, as clear as Secretary Kemp is on policy, he was a little fuzzier on tactics. I still don't understand what happens if the Congress comes up and does not meet the deadline of the president on an acceptable bill. I mean, he cannot bomb the Capitol building. Does he go to the country? I'll tell you the truth, I don't think they know at the White House exactly what they do if the deadline is not met.
I agree with that, Bob. And I thought the secretary was more charitable, I thought, toward Pat Buchanan than he has sometimes been in the past. Yes, he said it was good for President Bush and the Republican Party that Pat Buchanan had mounted this challenge, this insurgency against President Bush. I know what he meant. But when it came to the question, had Pat Buchanan actually influenced the president to come up with this program, this economic recovery program, he wouldn't go that far. He said, no, this was strictly the president, not Pat Buchanan.
But that was quite a change from the last time he was on this program. He was very critical of Buchanan. You know, Jack Kemp and Dan Quayle are pumping the drum for Mario Cuomo for president on the Democratic side. They say he'd be a wonderful candidate. And you know, if I were a Democrat, I wonder why are all these Republicans such Cuomo supporters? Jack Kemp also said that anybody who runs for president is going to have to undergo the kind of questions that Bill Clinton is dealing, and I think that is a sorry prospect for American politics. I'm Robert Novak.
I'm Rowland Evans.
For a transcript of Evans and Novak, send $4 to Evans and Novak Transcripts. Journal Graphics, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203. Or call 1-303-831-9000. Your comments may be sent to the same address.
Today's Contact takes on
Carol's horrible cold. I have a lot of congestion in through here, and like it's going to blow off the top of my head.
You took a cold pill, right?
The effects wore off. The congestion's coming back.
That's because ordinary cold pills can quit working after just 4 hours. Try Contact. You'll get continuous relief for up to 12 hours.
I felt wonderful. All my symptoms were gone, everything dried up. It's for busy people who have no time to be sick. This is a great product, and I'm going to go out and buy it tonight.
Today's Contact, 12 hours stronger than Carol's horrible cold.
More valuable than most, this umbrella. 50% of the Fortune 500 carry it for their insurance and investment needs. Open in case you want quality and service the traveler's way. You're better off under the umbrella.
Tonight, Bush's State of the Union address. Was it more politics than policy? And the campaign battle heats up the airwaves as candidates hit the television trail on CNN's Capital Gang, 7 Eastern tonight.
Hello, everybody. Coming up in half an hour on Newsmaker Saturday, as part of our continuing coverage of the presidential candidates, Charles Bierbauer will talk with Democratic candidate Paul Tsongas. Next on Newsday, Russian President Boris Yeltsin and President Bush are meeting at Camp David. We'll update you on their discussions. Also, ahead on Newsday, House Democrats get together to discuss political strategy. Their major goal, put a Democrat in the White House. The legal barriers have fallen. It looks as though thousands of Haitians will be shipped back to their homeland. The first female condom may hit U.S. store shelves by the end of the year. Proponents say the device lets women protect themselves from pregnancy and disease. And we'll tell you about a vacation strategy that's gaining popularity with economy-minded travelers. It's called the all-inclusive getaway. All that and more coming your way on CNN's Newsday.